Look at you. Still playing the nice guy. Still walking into rooms hoping people like you, instead of knowing exactly who they are. You're not polite. You're blind. And in the real world, the blind don't get respected. They get used. You've spent your life believing that if you're good to people, they'll be honest with you. That's a lie fed to you by people who want you predictable. You think you're reading the room? No. The room is reading your desperation. You're a walking open book, while everyone else is playing a game you didn't even know existed. Conventional wisdom tells you to look at micro-expressions or crossed arms. Garbage. That's hobbyist psychology for the weak. If you want to see the truth, you don't look at the face, you look at the soul's architecture. Today, we are opening the forbidden blueprint. I'm going to give you Machiavelli's 5 psychological tactics to read anyone instantly. This isn't about body language. It's about power dynamics. It's about seeing the predator before he sees you. But, a word of warning. We will cover 4 laws of human observation, but the 5th, the executioner's silence, is too volatile for most of you. It is the redacted tactic used to dismantle a person's entire psychological defense in seconds. If you aren't ready to see people for the monsters they actually are, turn this off now. Stay, and you stop being the prey. Leave, and stay comfortable in your ignorance. The choice, as always, was yours. 1. The mirror of necessity. Niccolo Machiavelli did not write for the choir. He wrote for the conductors of the world. He famously noted, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are." But let's be clear, this isn't just a quote for a coffee mug. It's a tactical autopsy. Machiavelli understood that humanity is a theater of shadows. Most people spend their lives staring at the shadows on the wall, weeping or cheering for things that don't exist. To read someone instantly, you must stop looking at the shadow and start looking at the source of the light. You must find their necessity. A man's words are his decorations. His necessities are his master. If you can identify the one thing a person must have to keep their ego from collapsing, you aren't just reading them, you own them. Let's talk about you. You're proud of your intuition, aren't you? You'd think you're a good judge of character because you can tell when someone is fake. That's adorable. The truth is, you are a victim of your own empathy. You walk into an interaction and you listen, actually listen, to the words coming out of their mouth. When someone spends an hour telling you how much they value integrity and family, you actually believe you've learned something about their soul. You haven't. You've just read the back of the DVD case. You've swallowed the marketing material. People do not communicate to reveal themselves. They communicate to protect themselves. Every time someone tells you what a good person they are effectively building a wall to hide the shivering, starving child behind it. You've been staring at the wall and calling it a person. You've been playing checkers against a world that is playing psychological warfare. And you're wondering why your kindness has not earned you a seat at the table. To read anyone instantly, you must adopt the mirror of necessity. This is the cold realization that every human being is a slave to a specific void. There are 4 primary voids that dictate 90% of human behavior. If you want to see the truth behind the mask, you must categorize your subject into one of these 4 hungers. The hunger for significance. These are the people who scream for attention without making a sound. They drop names, they wear loud clothes, or worse, they practice humble bragging. If you see this, you know their necessity is validation. They are the easiest to read and the easiest to manipulate. You can lead them into a furnace if you promise them a trophy for doing it. The hunger for safety. These people are obsessed with rules, processes, and the right way to do things. They seek the herd. When you see someone constantly checking for consensus before they speak, you've found a man who is terrified of the dark. He doesn't have a personality. He has a survival strategy. The hunger for control. This isn't just about bosses. It's the person who needs to decide where the group eats, or the partner who reorganizes your life for you. Their necessity is the mitigation of chaos. They're driven by an underlying fear of being helpless, the hunger for approval. These are the people pleasers you probably think are your friends. They aren't. They are addicts. They need your smile to feel like they have a pulse. Once you identify which void they are trying to fill, the mask falls off. The person who talks about loyalty incessantly is usually the one most terrified of being abandoned, meaning they will be the first to betray you if they think you're leaving. The person who talks about transparency is usually hiding a body in the basement. Machiavelli knew that virtue is the currency of the weak. The strong used the mirror. They reflect back to the person exactly what they need to see to feel their void being filled. If you want to know what someone is hiding, stop asking questions. Give them a tiny dose of what they crave and watch how they scramble to protect the supply. How do you do this in 30 seconds? You use the value grenade. In the middle of a mundane conversation, drop a subtle threat to their perceived necessity. If they crave status, casually mention a mutual acquaintance who just surpassed them. If they crave control, introduce a variable they can't account for. Watch their face. The social mask is a heavy thing. It requires immense energy to maintain. The moment a necessity is threatened, the energy diverted to the mask is sucked back into the core for defense. The mask slips. For a fraction of a second, you will see the lizard brain, the raw, naked hunger. That split second is the only truth you will ever get from them. That is the real person. The rest, the suit, the smile, the values, that's just the costume they wear to the funeral of their own honesty. You've been looking for signs of lying. Stop. Everyone is lying. Instead, look for the necessity, because while a man can lie about his intentions, he cannot lie about his hunger. The stomach always knows when it's empty. 2. The Virtue Masquerade. Machiavelli didn't just understand power, he understood the costume of power. He famously advised, "A prince must be a great pretender and dissembler." Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims for his deceptions. You see, the world isn't divided into good and bad people. It is divided into those who use morality as a weapon and those who are foolish enough to use it as a shield. To read anyone instantly, you must understand that virtue is a masquerade. The louder someone screams about their values, the more likely they are trying to drown out the sound of their own corruption. You've been trained to respect integrity. When someone goes out of their way to show you how charitable, how woke, or how principled they are, you feel a pang of guilt. You think, I wish I was as selfless as them. Wake up. In the shadow mind, we recognize that extreme displays of virtue are almost always preemptive defense mechanisms. Why do you think the wolf puts on the sheep's clothing? To be warm. No. To be invisible while he chooses which lamb to throat cut first. Every time you take someone's moral posture at face value, you are handing them the knife. You're allowing them to set the rules of the interaction so that when they eventually screw you over, you're the one left wondering what you did wrong. You aren't being empathetic. You're being a volunteer victim. The tactic is the inverse correlation. To read the truth, you must assume that a person's public virtue is the direct opposite of their private vice. The man who is obsessed with public modesty is often harboring a secret, explosive narcissism. The woman who constantly talks about loyalty is usually the one with the backdoor exit already planned. The saint who preaches forgiveness is almost always the one holding a ledger of grudges so long it would make a debt collector blush. People use virtue to buy social credit. They perform goodness so they can bank enough nice guy points to spend them later on an act of betrayal. If you want to read someone instantly, look for the overcorrection. When someone's reaction to a situation is too moral, too outraged, or too perfect, they aren't expressing a value. They are performing a distraction. They are trying to convince themselves as much as they are trying to convince you. How do you expose the masquerade? You apply the shadow incentivization. Offer them a dark shortcut, a way to get ahead that is slightly unethical but highly effective. If they are truly virtuous, they will decline with calm indifference. But if they are wearing a mask, they will do one of two things. They will explode in a performance of moral disgust. This is a red flag. They are terrified that you've seen through them, so they are overacting to compensate. They will pause, their eyes will dart, and they will start rationalizing. Well, in this specific case, maybe. There it is. The crack in the marble. The moment you see that hesitation, you have read them. You now know that their morality has a price tag. And once you know the price, you know the person. Don't be angry when they fail the test. Be relieved, because a man with a price is a man you can calculate. It's the saints you have to worry about, And as Machiavelli knew, there are no saints in the rooms where decisions are made. There are only actors who have forgotten they are wearing a mask. 3. The pulse of fear. Machiavelli's most infamous question was whether it is better to be loved or feared. His answer was a cold splash of reality. It is much safer to be feared than loved. If one of the two must be lacking. But the secret that the nice guys miss is that fear isn't just a tool for ruling, it is the ultimate diagnostic tool. To read a person's soul, you don't look at what makes them happy. Happiness is easy. It's a vacation. You look at what makes them tremble. You find their pulse of fear. Once you know what a man is afraid of losing, you know exactly how he will behave under pressure. You don't need a crystal ball to predict the future. You just need to know where someone's breaking point is hidden. You spend your time trying to connect with people. You look for shared interests, hobbies, and dreams. You think that by finding common ground, you're building a relationship. You're building a sandcastle on a shoreline. Connection is a luxury of the comfortable. The moment the tide of crisis comes in, all that shared interest evaporates. When the pressure is on, people don't act on their dreams. They react to their nightmares. By focusing on what people like, you are looking at the wallpaper of their life. If you want to see the structural beams, you have to look for the cracks. You have to find the things they're terrified of. You see poverty. Is it being laughed at? Is it being alone? Is it losing their status in a group of people who don't even like them? You've been trying to read people by their sunshine. I'm telling you to read them by their shadows, because when the lights go out, and they always do, the shadow is the only thing left. To read the pulse of fear, you must understand the trinity of terror. Every person's breaking point is tied to one of 3 core anxieties. These are the social chameleons. They agree with whoever is loudest in the room. To read them, watch how they react when they are excluded from a minor decision. If they over-explain themselves or try to fix a non-existent problem, they are slaves to the group. They are predictable because they will always choose belonging over truth. These are the accumulators. They are obsessed with resources, money, titles, or physical health. To read them, mention a potential threat to their stability. A market dip, a new competitor, a change in the law. Watch the sweat on their upper lip. A man afraid of ruin is a man who can be bought, because he is terrified of being less than. These are the architects. They have spent years building a perfect public image. Their fear is being found out, not necessarily for a crime, but for their own perceived inadequacy. They are the most dangerous to cross, because they aren't fighting for money. They are fighting for their existence. You don't need to kidnap someone to find their breaking point. You use microstressors. In a calm environment, introduce a dissonant variable. If you are talking to a colleague who prides themselves on being the smartest in the room, casually mention a complex topic and imply they might not be up to speed on it. If they immediately become defensive, dismissive, or start word salading to prove their intelligence, you've found the pulse. You now know that their breaking point is their intellectual ego. Now that you know, you can control them. You can feed their ego to make them work for you, or you can starve it to make them crumble in a negotiation. Most people go through life trying to hide their pulse of fear. They wear expensive suits. They use big words. They act tough. But Machiavelli knew that the tough are often the most fragile. The person who acts like they fear nothing is usually the person who is most terrified of appearing weak. When you find the pulse, don't press it immediately. Just keep your finger on it. Let them feel that you know. There is no psychological leverage more powerful than the silent realization that someone else has seen your monster and is unafraid of it. The moment they realize you've found their breaking point, they don't see a friend anymore. They see a master. And in the world of the shadow mind, that is exactly where you want them. Let's pause the lesson for a second. You're still here. Most people would have clicked away by now because this unapologetic truth makes them feel greasy. It makes them realize that the nice world they believe in is just a thin layer of paint over a very dark basement. But you're different. You're starting to see the gears, aren't you? You're realizing that the people who have been winning while you've been losing are not luckier than you. They just have a better map. If you want the full map, the kind they don't teach in business school or on self-help TikTok, you need to join the inner circle. Subscribe to the Shadow Mind Lab. Not because I want your like, but because you need the edge. Before we move to the final 2 laws, including the redacted law of 5, hit the button. Consider it your first move toward sovereignty. Now, back to the shadows. 4. The Strategic Indebtedness. Machiavelli was a master of the gift. He understood that a favor isn't a gesture of kindness. It is a weight. He wrote, "Nature has created men such that they desire everything but are unable to attain it. The result is nothing but animosity and war. In the shadow mind, we don't give gifts to be generous. We give them to create gravity. Every favor you do for someone is a test of their internal compass. To read anyone instantly, you must observe how they handle the weight of an unpaid debt. Does it make them grateful, or does it make them resentful? Loyalty is a rare currency, and most people are bankrupt. You've been taught that kindness begets kindness. You think that if you do someone a favor, you've made a friend. You've been told that giving is the path to being liked. That is the fastest way to get stabbed in the back. In reality, an unreciprocated favor creates psychological pressure. For a person of integrity, that pressure is a bond. For a person of weak character, that pressure is a threat. When you do something for someone that they cannot do for themselves, you haven't helped them. You've shown them that you are superior in that moment. To the insecure, your kindness feels like a humiliation. They don't want to thank you. They want to erase the debt by erasing you. You've been wondering why people you helped have turned on you. It's because you didn't read their reaction to the weight. To read a person's true loyalty, you must apply the strategic indebtedness. This is the practice of granting a low-cost, high-perceived value favor and then stepping back to watch the reaction. When you do them a favor, they treat it as their due. They don't thank you. They ask for more. This person is a parasite. They don't see your value. They see your utility. They will discard you the second you stop producing. They immediately look for a way to even the score. This is the mark of a professional or a peer. They are reliable, but they aren't loyal. They do not want to be in your debt because they do not want you to have power over them. They become cold or busy after you help them. Your favor reminded them of their own inadequacy. This is the most dangerous person in your circle. They will betray you simply to stop feeling small in your presence. How do you execute this? You provide a solution to a problem they didn't ask you to solve. Give them a piece of information, a connection, or a resource that helps them move forward. Don't look for a thank you. Look for the timing of the return. If they return the favor quickly with something of equal or greater value, they are a potential ally. If they disappear or become strangely critical of you shortly after, they are a threat. They are trying to devalue you in their own mind so they do not feel guilty for the debt they owe. Machiavelli knew that the bond of gratitude is easily broken by men who are a sorry lot. If you want to know who will stand by you when the wolves come, see who stands by you when you've already given them everything they wanted. Most will run, a few will stay. The tactic of indebtedness ensures you know which is which before the first drop of blood is spilled. 5. The executioner's silence. Machiavelli understood that the greatest power isn't in what you say, but in what you withhold. Ayoub said that men are so simple that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. But the ultimate deception isn't a lie, it's a void. Most people are terrified of the dark, but they are even more terrified of a silence they cannot fill. In the shadow mind, we call this the executioner's silence. It is the redacted tactic because it doesn't just read a person. It forces them to dismantle their own defense out of pure, unadulterated panic. You have a desperate, weak habit. When there is a pause in a conversation, you feel an itch. You feel the need to nod, to say right, or to fill the gap with a pointless anecdote. You think you're being social. You're being a coward. You're leaking information because you can't handle 3 seconds of tension. And because you are like this, you assume everyone else is too. You've been trying to interrogate people to find the truth. You ask questions, you probe, you push, and what do? They lie. They give you the answer they prepared. They stay behind the shield because your aggression gives them something to fight against. You are giving them the beat to dance to. Stop dancing. Stop talking. If you want to see what's behind the mask, you do want to tear it off, you wait for them to take it off themselves because the silence has become a suffocating weight. To execute the executioner's silence, you must become a mirror that reflects nothing. When you ask a question, or when someone finishes a statement, do not react. Do not blink. Do not offer a whom. Just look at them. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the human ego. When you create a silence, the other person's brain goes into an emergency state. They begin to wonder, did I say something wrong? Do they know the truth? Are they judging me? To kill the discomfort, they will start talking. And because they haven't prepared the next layer of the lie, the truth starts to leak out. They will offer details you didn't ask for. They will justify things they weren't accused of. They will reveal their necessity, their vice, and their fear all at once, just to make you speak. Next time you suspect someone is withholding the truth or playing a game, use the 3-second overhang. After they finish their sentence, count to 3 in your head while maintaining eye contact. If they are secure and honest, they will wait for you. If they are hiding something, they will break. They will add a filler sentence. I mean, it's not like I meant it that way. What I'm trying to say is, that's it. That's the thread. Pull it. The executioner's silence is the redacted law because it is the most predatory thing you can do to another human being, leaving them alone with their own guilt in a room where you are the only judge. It is cold. It is clinical, and it is 100% effective. You now have the blueprint. You can walk back out into the world and keep pretending that everyone is basically good. You can keep being the person who gets surprised by betrayal and confused by power. Or you can accept the burden of the shadow mind. Reading people isn't a parlor trick. It's a survival skill. Machiavelli didn't write for the weak of heart, and I didn't make this for the casual viewer. If you use these tactics, you will lose the comfort of innocence. You will see the cracks in your friends, the lies in your lovers, and the hunger in your heroes. The question isn't whether you can read them. The question is, are you strong enough to live with what you find? If you're still here, you're already part of the inner circle. Join us. Subscribe. Because the world is getting darker, and it's time you learn to see in the night.